let's back up again.
No, I'm fine. Let me just. Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, John. Thank you, Central Street Neighbors Association, for bringing us together yet again. I appreciate the invitation, and I'm glad to be here. I'm running for alderman because I, like you, am a frequent consumer of city services and a close observer of our neighborhood, and I have some issues. I wonder, my issues are both large and small, I wonder why, in almost 15 years that I've lived here, that I haven't had yet a positive experience in parking services. I wonder why my friend Tiffany had to move her homegrown, successful and expanding high-tech business out of Evanston so that it could succeed and expand in Chicago. I wonder how votes of the City Council on major issues can run so against the grain of the opinions of the people who choose to express them. And if we value citizen expertise on our boards and commissions, shouldn't their advice be counted? I wonder why it's so hard to discern the routes of buses on Central Street, including the Northwestern shuttles, and couldn't that public transportation be more well-marked and coordinated? I wonder why Evanston teenagers now have to travel to Skokie, Chicago, and Deerfield to find a family planning center to obtain birth control. Is it any wonder that the teen pregnancy rates in Evanston have increased since those services have been cut? I wonder why so many parents in the 7th Ward aren't comfortable letting their children walk or ride their bikes to school. We have 3 schools in our ward, and it's the driving that increases congestion and pollution when we should be creating a pedestrian culture in this neighborhood. I wonder why the city spent last year $250,000 to get the water flowing at Town Square when we have higher and better usage for $250,000. And I wonder why in the many years that I've been part of the city's budget process that we always begin with a deficit budget and either brace for a tax increase or expect city staff to pull a rabbit out of a magic hat at the last minute to save us. We know the answers to a lot of these questions. We must think differently about the business of government. We must ask the impertinent questions and seek and create opportunities. And as elected officials, we must be more than just a conduit for residents' concerns. We must amplify them. And just as importantly, we need leadership on the City Council that is responsive and transparent, and for whom asking a question is just the first step. Thank you.
My name is Kevin O'Connor, and I am a candidate for alderman in the 7th Ward. First of all, I want to quote FDR. I always like this quote, and I'll try to live up to it tonight. I know in one part I already have. He has a very wonderful quote that says, "Be sincere, be brief, and be seated." Second of all, I'd like to thank the Central Street neighbors, Jeff Smith, John Walsh, and all of the CSNA board for the invitation to participate. I'd also like to thank everyone for coming, giving up your Fat Tuesday celebration for civic involvement. I'd also like to thank the other candidates for 7th Ward Alderman for their interest in serving. Although in this contest we are technically, quote, opponents, I know we all agree that much needs to change and must change for the better in Evanston. In this spirit, I prefer to consider us allies. Whoever wins this office, I know that all of us will root for your success. It is my pleasure to appear at this event with you. Neighbors, I have a simple message for you this evening. It's time to reboot the city of Evanston. While I'm not much of a computer user, I do know that involves 3 keys: Control, Alt, and Delete. What do I mean by this? Control. There are numerous reasons for our current woes, but chief amongst them is a lack of accountability. Although our aldermen are only part-time, largely evening and weekend, there is no excuse for the lack of oversight in recent years that has allowed city services to degrade and financial problems to worsen. All the more amazing when considering this occurred during a development boom and expansion of the tax base. We can and must do better. Alt, or alternative thinking. Evanston has a well-deserved reputation, earned over decades as a progressive community, with passionate, well-educated, and involved citizens. Oddly, though, we're plagued when it comes to the basics of government: solid infrastructure, competent, consistent delivery of services, and balanced budgets. Sure, there are challenges, competing interests, and resistance to change, but municipal government isn't rocket science. Surely in this community we don't suffer a lack of creative thinking, only, and all too often, the lack of courage to consider fresh ideas, spiritedly debate them, and ultimately act upon them. Our problems are solvable. We can and must do better. Delete. In a sagging economy with revenue projections far below expectations, we can ill afford to have any budget line items beyond scrutiny. Not that any should ever be, even in the best of times. This doesn't have to translate to bare bones government, as I don't think anyone would challenge the assertion that fat remains in the budget. On the expense side, we need ever better discipline, especially in negotiating contracts. While the same applies on the revenue side, here we can also benefit from exploring new sources of revenue. We can and must do better. There you have it. Control, Alt, Delete. 3 key expectations you should have for the person you elect alderman. We can and must reboot this government. And if that fails to happen, you should give your alderman the boot, regardless of whom among us tonight you decide to elect. Thank you.
Dear friends and neighbors, for me, running for alderman is the culmination of 2 decades of community involvement and professional development. I've prepared for this job and timed it in my life. I've taken leadership classes and have flexible hours for my employer. I've run a political organization and I have a public record as a trustee of a property tax district. Tonight, you will hear a lot about experience and qualifications, opinions and ideas. I would like to take this time to talk about what, quote, Evanston resident since 1986 means. As I made my way around the campaign coffee circuit, I met a young couple who brought their firstborn infant with them. The years rolled back in my mind to when my college senior daughter was a baby. I remembered what Evanston was like back then. There were 2 movie theaters, cable TV service was new, downtown Evanston was uncrowded, and I had to travel to Wilmette or Skokie to buy a 6-pack. I wonder what Evanston will be like when that couple's baby is as old as mine. Other couples I've met have 1 or more kids in the elementary, middle, or high school. They face the same issues I do in keeping their kids safe, active, and out of trouble. I remember sledding down a toboggan run at Lee Park or skating in an outdoor rink. I moaned about driving to Niles to Chuck E. Cheese or to Lincolnwood to go bowling. And I still moan about driving to Palatine for indoor soccer. Today, I wonder how we can make Evanston a more fun place for children of all ages. As I entered the home of one of my coffee hosts, I came across a wall covered with pictures of a family grown up. I reflected upon the 2 empty bedrooms in my house and what changes in lifestyle I will face in a few years. I can appreciate the appeal of downtown condos for empty nesters, and I understand the fear of increased taxes on retirement, increased taxes on those who depend on retirement income. If you wonder what I would be like as an alderman, I urge you to read the minutes of the North Shore Mosquito Abatement District available on the nsnid.com website. Those minutes reveal how I and the board are sensitive to environmental issues, to ensuring efficient operations and fair employment practices, and getting the most value out of your property tax dollar. The person who appointed me, 7th Ward resident Cook County Commissioner Larry Sufferman, has endorsed and is assisting me in this aldermanic campaign. During tonight's discussion, you will hear lots of different opinions about lots of different subjects. I hope to leave you with 3 impressions: the openness of my thinking, the intelligence of my ideas, and the sincerity of my motives. Thank you very much.